Recording is started. So once again, Adam from My Sherpa is handling the seminar. Adam, I will give you the floor.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. I think there's a lot of really good information that we'll be able to share with everybody, kind of a little bit more about what we're doing today. So this is a cybersecurity presentation focused primarily on how the construction industry in general faces a heightened risk of phishing attacks. So there are a lot of different things that are out there from the cyber perspective, a lot of different threat vectors that any industry faces, but in particular, phishing is the #1 threat that faces any industry, particularly the construction industry, which we can go into in a little bit more detail shortly. So I want to thank everybody for joining today. Thank you for making some time to spend your morning with me. And my goal for today is for everybody here to walk away with a little bit more kind of knowledge, understanding of what kind of threats their businesses face, as well as personally, and what you and your colleagues are facing, as well as what kind of tools or resources are available to you to be able to combat these types of issues, or be able to prevent or protect yourselves from these types of issues. So before I begin on some of the details here, I just wanted to let you guys know, while everybody is muted, I would love for this to be an interactive program. So if you have any questions or any examples of instances where you've come across phishing or anything like that, I'm more than happy to do my best to answer them. To answer those questions, and if I can't provide an answer for you now, I would love the opportunity to just hunt an answer down for you and maybe connect offline on that to get that resolved. So I welcome anybody to take themselves off mute and kind of raise their hand and ask any kind of questions as we go along. So before we go into any details, a little bit more about My Sherpa and myself. So My Sherpa, if you're not familiar with us, we are ABC members. We've been in business, privately owned and managed here in Delaware for 20 years. We are a technology service partner or provider. And what does that mean? We do everything from network management, monitoring and support of folks' workstations and your network and your server environment, things of that nature. Help desk support, and a full stack of information security solutions that kind of go hand in hand with technology strategy and security operations, and even coming down into some of the cyber insurance pieces. I've personally been with My Sherpa since January, so coming up on my first year with My Sherpa. I've been loving the company here, the people here, as well as our affiliates, in ABC. I've been having a great time getting to know the industry, getting to know all the kind of the business leaders and folks. I'm personally a new member of the Young Professionals Committee, so really looking forward to kind of building on that. So going into the presentation, right, I wanted to start off with some high-level statistics. So kind of because the data in 2022 is still being collected, I was able to use 2021 data as well as kind of compare the data from 2021 to what we know about 2022 so far. And the numbers were similar enough that I was able to use these numbers and have it be relevant for the folks on the call today. So two kind of threat vectors that every industry is facing, right, is going to be phishing and ransomware. So while we are primarily looking at phishing today, I wanted to include some ransomware statistics because the source of most ransomware attacks are through phishing. And why is that? So phishing, by definition, is essentially the communication where the fraudulent act of communicating and purporting themselves to be somebody that is a credible resource or a credible source that you are perhaps familiar with, or that they assume you would be familiar with. So everything from reaching out and saying that they're your business partner, or impersonating a colleague or a vendor or something of that nature. That is by definition what phishing is. And what they're doing when they're phishing is they're looking for credentials, and those credentials can potentially lead to ransomware when they get into your network. So some really high level statistics for 2021, 84% of the construction industry that was attacked by phishing incidents, unfortunately fell victim to it. Now, the victim, falling victim, it can mean anything. It can mean that you did accidentally release a password, or it could mean that it ended up in sums of money being lost, or personally identifiable information being compromised, that kind of thing. 44% of those 84% suffered from payment scams. That's things like purchase order fraud, where a vendor or somebody impersonating a trusted client sends a PO over to you, to your accounting people, or to you in particular, and says, hey, your payment didn't go through on the last one. There's a charge. It's going to be this much this month, and it looks and feels just enough right that unfortunately 44% of folks are falling victim. All of that resulted in a $1.8 billion industry-wide losses in 2021. So almost a $2 billion industry. Sometimes it makes me wonder if I'm on the wrong side of the on the wrong side of the fence there. But when it comes to that, I mean, it certainly is a massive industry, unfortunately, and as a result of those wire transfers, as you can see at the bottom, $80,000 is the average wire transfer. Now, what that means is that means it's everything from a $3,000 purchase order that looks, again, familiar or is just palatable enough for folks to understand, like, yeah, that makes sense, I should pay that, all the way up to some of the national construction firms or architectural firms or those types of things, where they're dealing more in multiple six figures at a time. And so again, it's the scale. So that kind of stuff might make sense for an accounts payable at that point. So phishing could lead to ransomware, right? So 59% of organizations were hit with ransomware. Those are the organizations that know that they were hit with ransomware. Unfortunately, the nature of ransomware, typically what happens is the ransomware will get into your network environment, your servers, things of that nature, and it will lie dormant for quite some time, sometimes between 12 to 15 months. 12 to 16 months before it actually attacks. And what that is they want to test the waters. They want to test what kinds of tools you might have in place. They want to test if they're being identified. They want to take their time collecting data and getting a good understanding of what's most critical to your business and your organization, so that they can strike and take that down and hold it ransom. Due to the complex nature of ransomware, unfortunately, 39% paid the ransom, which ultimately ended up in $20 billion paid in 2021. So it's everything from the kind of purchase order fraud, the fraudulent scams that are just a kind of a transactional situation through the actual phishing attack, to the bigger fish to fry, if you will, on when it comes to these cyber criminals, which is the ransomware. And they're able to hold these firms hostage by shutting down their systems and getting that payment. So $91,000 was the average ransom paid in 2021. And as you can see, phishing was the second most common cause of breaches, costing 4.91 million. In this is 2022 statistics, so that's just so far. So kind of going into more detail about why they target the construction industry. So these cyber criminals, they have an understanding of where they want to target and when and how. So small to medium-sized businesses, I would classify most of ABC organizations, as well as some of the other, most Delaware-based organizations, as a small and medium-sized businesses. There are, of course, large organizations in our in ABC, as well as other membership programs throughout Delaware. But they know that SMBs are the backbone of the American economy. So there's so many jobs that are tied up in SMBs, that they know that so many people are relying on things that basically get done with you guys, especially with your ties to infrastructure, general infrastructure in the United States. So they really want to, these cyber criminals really want to hit us where it hurts, right? So if it's foreign nationals or if it's domestic terrorists, essentially what they want to do is they want to hit organizations where it hurts, and they know that holding up supply chain, holding up jobs being completed, holding up transactions is where it's really going to hurt and where we're really going to feel that. They also consider SMBs to be low-hanging fruit. So what does that mean when I call them low-hanging fruit? And what that means is that you guys have this, ABC members, construction industry members have the same business practices that at their core that a lot of other organizations will have. But because you're an SMB, you don't always necessarily have the same protections or processes or resources, human resources that is, in place as the larger organizations. So we all recall that Equifax was breached a little while ago, and that resulted in tremendous losses. Ed, I'm sorry, if you could mute yourself, please. So because you don't have the same resources at your disposal, but you have the same types of processes in place, what happens is you're more vulnerable to those attacks than the large organizations that are going to have different layers of security in place. Infrastructure disruptions. So this is things like hacktivism. So what is hacktivism? These are folks who are hacking, they call it ethically, right? So they are on a mission to prove something, whether it be people who are against the way the United States operates, right? They feel very strongly that they have socialist or communist views, right? And they're against that kind of thing. And so they want to hurt organizations that are profiting. And so they will go after you in that sense, and try to take you down. Same thing with terrorism. So with the war in Ukraine and our retaliation against Russia, as well as other aspects of Iran, Syria, and China, and North Korea, these types of terrorists are going to be targeting the low-hanging fruit, again, the backbone of the American economy, so that they can, because essentially for them it's easier, so that they can again hit us where it hurts, and really kind of make the average citizen, if you will, feel that pain, not just senators or congressmen, things like that.
At that age, they just all follow the ball.
Ed, can you hear me?
It's like a big hurt. Yeah.
Can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. And then why target the construction industry? So cyber insurance. Due to the nature of small to medium-sized businesses, most organizations will have perhaps less cyber insurance. They understand these days, or at least historically, these bad actors, right? These cyber criminals, that folks haven't prioritized cyber insurance as something that they need, and so they've typically gone for lower requirements, lower grade policies, or have gone with riders, essentially, which is a rider on top of your regular policies that really only cover a very small amount that is typically nowhere near the amount of that ransomware or phishing will ask for, and so they know that you're especially susceptible to those attacks at that time. So that's kind of in a nutshell why target the construction industry due to the unique nature of your business. And then so going into a little bit further, right? What types of phishing exist out there, right? So the first thing that comes to most folks' minds when they understand the threat of phishing is emails. So emails that are pretending or purporting to be someone else, maybe a trusted source, or a trusted colleague or friend or business partner, whatever that is, or vendor. And so most folks know how to look out for that. However, there are a number of different types of phishing today. So they're going to continue to get more and more sophisticated. And I'll just briefly kind of run through what each of these categories entails. So phishing is kind of your normal phishing. You get an email that says, hi, Adam, and then goes about how I, missed an invoice, or I need to update my payment credentials or my login credentials for a website. It's typically going to have typos in it. It's typically going to not look just exactly like the brand or the vendor that it's coming from or the person, and it's going to have things like a different email domain. So the first thing that you should do when you get these types of phishing or potential phishing emails is look at the email domain. So for example, my email is at mysherpa.com. If you know that you always get emails from at mysherpa.com from Adam, if this one says at my-sherpa.net, that's not our legitimate domain name, but it looks very, very close. It looks close enough that most folks may not realize it. So that's the kind of thing to just be on the lookout for. What is spear phishing? Spear phishing is highly tailored and targeted attacks. So what this is people will use LinkedIn, they'll use social networks, they'll use information that they collect over a longer period of time to get a good understanding of perhaps somebody that I have a strong relationship with, or that you have a strong relationship with, and impersonate that person with what you would consider to be a regular communication, right? So if you're on LinkedIn always liking somebody's post, or if you're on even Facebook or Instagram, your private social media, and you're following these people, they're going to take that information over a longer period of time and try to identify a way that they can highly target you as an individual to get your login credentials or your company's confidential information. The difference between spear phishing and regular phishing is that regular phishing is typically a little bit lazier and is more of like a spray and pray approach, right? So they're going to try to attack everyone across the board, and the same, your company is getting the same emails that another company is, that kind of thing. Spear phishing is extremely specific and is harder to identify. Whaling is the act of going after executives only. So they are most likely using spear phishing as the tactic, and whaling is going after the CEO, the CTO, the CFO, the COO, whoever that is, on the executive level, to obtain potentially more sensitive information or get more money out of the attack, versus going after the accounts payables and HR folks like that. So going into social engineering is the act of again, kind of going back into the spear phishing realm, where they're using your social media, they're using whatever information that they can gather throughout whatever's available on the internet, to pretend to be somebody either that you know or somebody that you get to know, in order to, for example, catfish you or whatever that tactic may be. But social engineering is the idea of collecting data and then using it against you. So a good example of that is some people in their Twitter handle or their Instagram username will have their birthday at the end, right? So at Adam G, 1106 or whatever that is. So that's a good starting point. Okay, we know his birthday might be 1106, and then they click around and they see that I just bought a house and I'm standing in front of the house and it says 508 on. Okay, we know his address starts with 508. So that kind of thing is where they start to use social engineering to start to gather that information to potentially steal identities. Phishing is voice phishing, and that's essentially the act of phishing, but over the phone. So they call, they say, hey, I'm calling from, well, everybody gets these scam calls, right? I'm calling about your vehicle's extended warranty, or I'm calling from the bank. They don't even say what bank it is. They just say the bank, and we need to update your account information. So that's the same kind of idea, but it's over the phone. Smishing is SMS phishing, so SMS text. So that's essentially texting you again with the same kind of idea. My favorite example is that when I first started here at MySherpa, I was at dinner with my wife, and I got a text from my CEO, Greg Gurev, and it said, hey Adam, I had Greg's number, right? Like I knew what his phone number was, and this came from a different phone number, and said, hi Adam, this is Greg Gurev. Let me know if you get this message. And I said, hey Greg, you trying out a new phone number? And then they said, yes, I'm in a meeting and with a client, very important client, and I need 4 $100 Amazon gift cards. And of course, I'm in this industry, so immediate red flag. But what they were doing in that instance, quite obviously, is that they used social engineering right? Monitoring LinkedIn, things like that. They identified that I had just started a position at My Sherpa within a month or so. I think it was only a few weeks actually. And so I'm new to the organization, right? And I want to make my CEO, my boss, happy. I want to make sure that everyone's happy. And so I'm in that instance especially vulnerable to a phishing attack like that, because it's kind of like, oh, no questions asked, sure thing, Greg. But what I did was I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to the Greg number that I knew, and he said, that was a really lame attempt at phishing. Thanks for being on the lookout, that kind of thing. So that's SMS phishing, smishing. And then there's outside the firewall phishing. So what is inside the firewall, right? So inside the firewall are all of these phishing attacks that are hitting you. So you're getting hit with phishing attacks, you're getting hit with spear phishing, these types of emails, phone numbers, things like that. Typically your firewall will try to stop it, which is why you're inside of that firewall. Now, what's going on outside the firewall is a little bit different. So outside the firewall is using things like those typo variations of your domain names, or using fraudulent websites and things like that to attack or scam your clients, your colleagues, your partners, things like that, right? So it doesn't necessarily affect you individually, but what kind of effects you feel from that are reputational damage, right? So if you have a domain email out there that is phishing all of your partners, all the other ABC members, they're going to think, even though it's not your fault, they're going to think just a little bit more negatively about you, next time they want to do business with you, because they're a little bit more wary. They're nervous that, am I even speaking to the right Kevin or Jack or Helen? So that's the kind of thing that you do have tools available at your disposal, which I'll go through in a moment, about, with regards to outside the firewall. So it's not just what is impacting you directly. This is a whole world of cybercrime that affects anybody in this kind of ecosystem here at ABC. So does anybody have any questions about the types of different phishings, or does anybody want to share a specific example that they thought was funny, or that they have concerns about, or anything like that? I just want to open the floor for a few minutes to hear about that.
I have little something. In 2016 or 17, we were actually attacked, but it was a PDF, I guess, that came in, and an employee opened it, and I don't know what happened, but overnight it let loose, and no one can get on their computer when we came in. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure what happens with those PDFs, but be careful.
Yeah, thank you, Helen, for sharing. That's certainly true. Any type of file these days, PDF, Word document, Excel, PowerPoint, anything really could have something attached to it that's a malware or a ransomware. And so clicking on attachments is something that's certainly something that we'll go through in a moment, around like kind of policies and proactive training and things like that. But it's not always, it can't be at the fault of the employee. If it looked so much like something that it was coming from a trusted source, or it's like, what's the harm in opening a PDF, right? Unfortunately, there is harm in it, but it's about that proactive training. So I'm sorry that you guys went through that, Helen. Hopefully everything has been recovered since then. Any other kind of examples or questions or anything before I move along? Okay. So, right, stay vigilant. So this is kind of what I was alluding to there, how we can start to stay ahead of these types of bad actors, of these cyber criminals, and these types of attacks. So one thing you want to do is you want to review your cyber insurance policy. I would start there, because the cyber insurance, for lack of a better term, that is your insurance, right? So that's what they cover. If this attack were to happen to you, whether it be a phishing attack or a or ransomware, malware, whatever it is that has a business impact on you, and money is transacted, cyber insurance will cover the gambit there. They'll cover the losses directly through that transaction. They'll cover the cost of downtime. They'll cover the cost of PR. They'll cover the cost of legal, all these things. So if currently you have perhaps a lower tier cyber policy, or if you have cyber as a rider on your P&C or your P&L policies, you might want to take a look at updating that, and looking at what you can do, because in this case, an ounce of prevention is definitely worth a pound of cure, because Helen could attest to it, right? It hurts when you have a day or more of downtime, and then perhaps even find yourself in a situation where you have to pay a ransom. Additionally, seek advice, right? So find strategic guidance around your cyber insurance policy, as well as strategic guidance around the types of threats that you face. My Sherpa is certainly a local resource that knows the construction industry really well. We have a lot of clients that we help protect from these types of threat vectors. So we're certainly a resource for you. And then tools, right? So things like advanced filtering and reporting on phishing. So advanced filtering are spam filters that are not just provided by, for example, Outlook or Gmail, right? Kind of the out-of-the-box spam filters. They know how to get around that. I got to give it to them. Google and Microsoft have done a pretty good job of updating that and I guess just updating what they do so that they can stay ahead of the curve. But there are providers out there that we work with and that our clients use that are much more sophisticated in their ability to identify and protect against phishing, right? So these advanced filtering tools are definitely something to look into. And then reporting phishing. So one of the things that a lot of my clients share with me is that when they suspect that an email is phishing and they caught it, which good job all around, what do I do with it, right? Okay, I know I shouldn't click on it, so do I delete it? All right, great, so now it's deleted, but what does that mean, right? What does that mean for the rest of the organization? What does that mean for the rest of the world who could potentially fall victim to this type of phishing? So a tool that My Sherpa offers is an actual report phishing button, right? That's in your Outlook application or in your Gmail application. And what that does is, if you think it's a phishing incident, then you can report that. And where that goes is to the provider that we work with, our partner, as well as My Sherpa's help desk. And it's kind of a two-pronged approach. What will happen then is it'll go to My Sherpa's help desk, and the first thing we do is we block that email domain from your organization, right? So upon further review, yes, this is phishing, and we're going to block that from your organization. So now nobody else can receive an email from that email domain at your organization, further protecting this instance from happening again. Next, what we can do is we can actually pull that email from everybody's inbox, right? So now that email is being ripped out, from everybody's inbox, whether they read it, whether they didn't read it, whether it's been deleted, because your deleted files still sit in deleted, right? And it's ripped out so that nobody can any longer even have the opportunity to click on that or act any further. At the same time, it's going to the provider, right? KnowBe4 is the company we use. It's called KnowBe4. It's KNOWBE4. And what it'll do is it'll go to them and they'll handle it from there, right? So what they're doing is they're working with Google Chrome, Internet Explorer to block that domain at the browser level, right? So now browsers are blocking it. So if you've ever found yourself accidentally, go into a domain where it said deceptive site ahead or warning, that kind of thing, that's KnowBe4 and some other providers in their space working with Google Chrome and Internet Explorer and Firefox, things like that to block that. Then they go to the internet service provider. So now Comcast, Verizon, whoever that is, because they're hooked up to your firewall, to your switches, things like that, in your network closet, that scary network closet that nobody wants to touch, they're blocking it at that level. So now that traffic can't even move even get into your environment, let alone hit your filters, right? Additionally, they're going to the registrar, right? So GoDaddy and the likes of that, they're going to that and they're blocking it at the registrar level. So now that domain is no longer registered, it's inactivated. The host level, they're taking down the content on the page, things like that. So there's real action, there's actionable intelligence here that we can see happening, which further, basically benefits the greater society as well as your organization and you personally by having these reporting tools in place. Business continuity, so proactive planning in the instance that this type of threat kind of takes you down or hits you financially really hard. This is something that my Sherpa helps with on kind of a more advanced level. So every business should have a business continuity plan. For example, everything from our office got hit by a tornado to the power's out to you know, all of our systems are down. And what my Sherpa helps do is organize a solution and a plan there should the stuff hit the fan, so to speak. So both technically as well as with your business in general, we can help with coordinating that. That's a service we offer. And then proactive training and awareness, right? So putting policies and procedures in place. So that's training your users to look out for these types of phishing attacks. It's general mindset kind of thing. You know, unfortunately, the biggest threat vector or the biggest vulnerability is people in general. We make mistakes, right? We click on stuff. It happens. So the more that we can educate folks proactively on what to look out for, the better we can protect them and ourselves and organizations moving forward. Additionally, having a policy in place, you know, what to do with it when you get it. So send it to my Sherpa, right? Click on the report phishing button, things like that. When people know what the next step is, they're able to take that action and they feel better about themselves. So they feel better that they got that done. And just overall, and it gets them excited, right? About being able to kind of stop this crime from happening, as opposed to just feeling vulnerable by just deleting it. And you know, now I'm kind of uncomfortable about that. Reporting on click happy users, right? So this is phishing testing. So the know before tool that we use, it also offers a service which I have a lot of fun with, which is testing phishing, right? So it'll send out randomly to end users fake phishing attempts, right? To test if they report it or not, or if they click on it or whatever. And if they report it, they get a congratulations banner, you know, good job. This was a phishing test and you passed. I like to have fun with my team when they do it to me, because I'll take a screenshot of it and send it to my COO and I'll say, you're going to have to do better than that kind of thing. You know, so you can kind of gamify it. But additionally, you know, what happens is if you do have those click happy users that are, for example, failing those phishing tests, then we can do a remedial training. You know, have them do a 30-second to 3-minute video refresher, as well as maybe some continuous training throughout the organization if it's a trend that you see, right? So something that's every quarter, or something of that nature, where you're continuing to make sure that everybody's aware of the types of threats out there. Then lastly, on this side, because of the nature of the close-knit nature of the construction industry, right? What will be found is that the most you're going to see, the most types of phishing that you're going to see is people impersonating, these bad actors impersonating your potential partners, right? So somebody can go on the ABC list, see all the companies that are in the ABC, and just start pretending to be all of them, talking to the entire network, right? Just again, this spray and pray approach, just splashed across the board. Luckily, with ABC, we have a close-knit group of folks that are involved in their membership, and you know these people personally, right? So if it's something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, what you can do is you can pick up the phone and you can call that person. You know, communicate with your partners. If you're used to doing a transaction via ACH or on autopay or a specific way, and all of a sudden it's coming through as a PDF, right, with an invoice on it, and that's not the way you typically do it, call that person up that they're pretending to be and say, hey, did you just send me an email and what's going on with this? And they'll most likely say, no, I didn't. Oh my gosh, what's going on? And you'll say, okay, it must have been phishing, that kind of thing. So communicate with your partners, right, and your clients and your colleagues. That's the best way that you can stay ahead of it, is outside of that email realm, because you don't want to respond to the email for sure. Pick up the phone, you know, text them if you can, hit them up on LinkedIn, you know, whatever that alternative mode of communication you have with them, use it to your disposal to protect yourself and your company and your colleagues. So does anybody have any questions on this side about the types of stuff that's available to you?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I like that little button that you could push to report the spam. That's very interesting.
It is. It's great. And you know what they do is they filter the spam from or in the phishing emails from getting into your account to begin with. So what they do is they'll quarantine it, and then you get regularly, like, so for example, every 3 hours you'll get an email saying, hey, you know, Adam, we held these 3 messages for you because they looked like spam. Click on this link and you go into a safe and secure environment in their portal, right? So it's not in your inbox, it's in online, and you can look at previews of the messages, and you can just either leave them alone, say, yep, they're spam, or if you feel like it is a legitimate email that got, you know, caught up by accident, then you can release that, you know, out into your inbox.
So is that a software that's put onto your computer?
It's not a software. No, it's so it's just an Outlook add-in. It's just a plugin.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then what it'll do is it'll click. It'll send you an email saying that we quarantine these, and you click it, and you'll go to, you know, you'll go to the browser. You'll go online, and it'll show you that. So it's totally, I wouldn't say touchless, but it's not an installation of anything on the hardware.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate the positive feedback there. Any other questions or anything before I move along? Okay. So that's pretty much the end of the presentation. So if there are any questions or anything like that, I wanted to put up my contact information here. So again, I'm Adam Greenback. I'm the Director of New Business here at MySherpa, and we're here in Linden Hill in Pike Creek, right off of Route 7. So we're pretty centrally located here in Wilmington. All of our Sherpas, so to speak, our help desk are based here in Wilmington, Delaware. And anytime you pick up the phone and give us a call for any kinds of requests, it is a Delawarean that's picking up the phone and ready to help you out. So that's my contact information there, as well as my phone number for any kind of questions.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
a lot
thank
of good
you, Helen.
information.
Great.
So
Yes.
Adam, thanks. So Adam,
We-
thanks. Go ahead,
Thanks.
go ahead, Helen. I'm sorry.
Do we have the slide deck? Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
You get a copy of this recording. That
Okay,
recording.
great. Thank you.
Minus my interruption in the middle of it for not muting my microphone.
all good, Ed. And what I'll do is I'll PDF this and then send it over to Ed, so that you can send it out with the recording, if that's okay. Do you mind?
Yes.
Or make it available if folks want
Yep.
to ask.
No, I can send it with recording. Yep.
Perfect. Yep.
Anybody have any other questions before we close? So Adam, thanks for your help. I appreciate it very much. Everybody will get a recording again and a copy of the slide deck. And with that, I hope you all have a good day.
Thanks. Take care.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for joining.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed.
Yep.